What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be looking at how Manchester City won the league and a few concepts they implemented this season. A few new ones from Pep Guardiola. Even from the start to the season to the end, they implemented a few new tactics, and I'll show you the most common ones and a few rotations they used to then end up winning the league pretty comfortably in the end with 3 games to go. But anyway, let's get right into it. So before we start, check out my book. It is online. It's being sold through Amazon, so be sure to check that out. There's a link to it in the description below. And make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And let's get right into it. So first, starting off with some defensive concepts, we saw the main structure of Manchester City in the defensive phase. When they defended deeper, they played in more of a 4-4-2, and as they defended higher up the field, they had their wide players advance closer to the first line of pressure to go from a 4-2-2-2 to then go to a 4-2-4. So we can see that here as play progresses. We can see their highlighted structure, their 4-4-2, with the staggered forwards to occupy the holding midfielder on the offensive team. And we have the field divided with an extra field division through the center just to create more reference points to then adequately position the players. But the 2 forwards in the defensive phase oftentimes occupied the double pivot, which is a trend in the Premier League at the moment when teams build out from the back. When the ball would be played to the central defender, one of the wide players, in this case Phil Foden, would start his run, angle it, and press from out to in to use his cover shadow and block off the wide area. And Manchester City, they were very good at increasing the intensity within their press. So we would see the weak side forward then oftentimes look to create dual roles out of possession to then occupy the weak side holding midfielder as well as the goalkeeper, often forcing teams to play long. The double pivot for Manchester City, supporting the press, would occupy the advanced player between the lines, as well as creating stability and cover in the 10 position of the offensive team, blocking off any advanced area pass. The next big concept was the positioning of the fullbacks, so either Zinchenko, Walker, or Cancelo most of the time. They would then jump to the other team's fullback and then defend with numerical equality at the back many of the time. So now, going forward and looking at Manchester City in possession, in the first phase of their build-up, we would see them create asymmetry within their first line of build-up, often going with a 3-man build-up. So here, the asymmetry is derived from Diaz, Stones, and Walker in this situation, and Walker playing in the wide area, in the interior part of the wide area, and this is as an option to progress around the opposing team's block. So out of the range of the pressing range of the 2 forwards, Walker could then progress through the wide area and then have multiple options through the center, half space, and wide area. And then if they were able to build out in tighter areas using an inverted fullback, creating the double pivot, we would see Stones and Diaz positioning themselves closer to each other to then tighten up the passing options and creating a more press-resistant structure. The next big thing was the players and how they operated between the lines. So we see Kevin De Bruyne playing in the 10 position, playing off the midfield line and the defensive line, and playing more so in the middle between the lines to then create confusion from the defense. So the goal would then be either to get the midfielders to drop to cover these positions, thus creating space in the first and second line of build-up, or create the opportunity for the defenders to jump into these positions, which would then create space in behind. So the main concept would be creating lose-lose situations for the defense, as well as having the opportunity to create movement from these areas. So oftentimes we would see Gundogan come into the wide area, avoiding cover shadows, while Phil Foden would invert, and then they would have options to then progress, and a little bit more confusing for the defense. But moving forward in possession, now we move to when City would build with 2 central defenders, so a 2-man build-up in the first line. Again, we often see asymmetry within the City team, but many times when this happens, the inverted runs from the winger would occur, probably one at a time. Both probably wouldn't go, and the wide fullbacks would then occupy the wider area, and thus the two movements counteract each other. So Mahrez and Foden becoming inverted now, pushing the back line back, and the wide players via the fullbacks trying to stretch the defense horizontally, creating more space between the lines for the advanced players. But also with narrow runs of the winger, the fullbacks would then be a potential avenue to progress around the team's block. And if not, they would always have the option, if the defense became overextended, they'd have the option to play through the opponent, through the central corridors, and with the inverted runs from the two wingers, the advanced players probably would have more space because of the defense's reaction to this movement and the response of dropping into deeper areas. But now the next we'll see is when Cancelo would come onto the field. Zinchenko would probably be the player subbed off, and this was a little bit of a variability in the lineup, but we'll go back with a three-man build-up and Cancelo becoming the inverted fullback. So having Cancelo a more progressive option as the double pivot alongside Rodri, we can often see them staggering between the half space and central corridor, creating a five-man midfield shape, thus giving them numerical superiority. But especially 5-10 games ago, or even a little bit longer, so a few months ago, a few weeks ago, we'd see Cancelo operate in a higher position as a fullback and a false fullback playing an 8 role. And again, this would just be a different way to create movement and create a response from the defense to get them to jump into inefficient areas and leave dangerous spaces in behind, as we see the defense doing in this situation. So in one situation, when the midfielder would jump to Kyle Walker, the fullback, who's playing deeper here in the first line, it would then create space in the half space and wide area, giving them the numerical superiority via the overload in the half space, as well as the option to utilize this excess of space they find in the offensive third. And that's the analysis, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.